Hi, everybody. Now we're really ready for the next panel. Speeding up industrial and trustworthy AI is going to be the topic, and all our guests will be online. It's my pleasure to welcome the next moderator. We're going now live to Munich, and we'll greet Professor Dr. Sonia Tilner from Siemens. She is also leading the development of strategic agenda at the BDVA. Sonia, I hope you're well. How is Munich today?
Hi, Mozza. Munich is white, very white, and it's snowy and windy. Yeah.
Greetings from sunny Ljubljana.
Ljubljana.
Yes, over to you, Sonia. This is your panel, and we'll enjoy.
Yeah, thank you. So I just wanted to motivate while we're talking about this topic. I mean, we have been talking about AI since many years, that we see many opportunities, value that we can generate out of AI. We also learned that trust in AI is crucial in order to ensure the adoption of AI. And I mean, trustworthy AI means that we need to ensure that it's safe, that it's reliable, that it does what we promised that it should do, that it's lawful, that it's respecting human rights, right? So basically, we also seen that there's now a new AI Act coming up, so a proposal for an AI regulation that was published in April this year. And the point is, or the question is now how we can implement such a new regulation. In general, what we observe that regulation and innovation, we need to find the right balance. And it's also a way forward where many perspective needs to be integrated. So for that reason, I'm very happy to have different speakers from different perspectives here in the call, and we can discuss this topic, how to speed up the implementation of trustworthy AI. There will be a lot of cost involved, time involved. We need to build up new expertise, resources, infrastructure. So basically, one of the main questions which will lead us through the session is how can we join forces to speed up what is needed and how we collaborate. So we have great setup of speakers here. So I want to introduce first Lucilla Scioli from European Commission. Welcome here. It's from Noja Boyema, who's representing more the industrial perspective. Also, she has been researched before. She's from IKEA Retail, working there now. We have Julien Giaroni, who's like central in France to build up AI ecosystem. Welcome here to join the session. Milan Petkovic from Philips, who's also professor for AI. So basically he can represent this perspective. And Asuncion Gomez Perez from Madrid, from the University UPM. She's professor there and can indicate us upcoming research challenges. So welcome everybody here on board. And I think we will start first with some statements that you have prepared. And I would like to start with Lucilla. I mean, Lucilla, you're the Director for Artificial Intelligence and Digital Industry at DG Connect. You have been working since long time in the area of AI, pushing this and putting aspects forward. So how is the European Commission supporting the adoption of industrial AI, trustworthiness for industrial AI, and how do they ensure to speed up?
Thanks a lot for the question, and thanks a lot for inviting me to this event. Let me recall that the European Commission, or the European Union, has a very important objective in terms of the adoption of AI, which is about making the European Union becoming a leading hub in the development and the use of human-centric AI. And this is a very important objective for us, which sometimes is criticized, because I am often told, but look at the United States and China and how much the European Union is lagging behind. How in the world do you ever think that the European Union, without the big platforms, can actually be one of the leaders in AI? And my answer normally is that I strongly believe that one of the comparative advantages, one of the important assets the European Union has, is actually its industrial sector, and so its capability of developing AI for industrial applications. And when I mean industrial application, of course, I'm thinking of manufacturing and transport, but I am also thinking of more kind of services sectors, just to think of financial services and healthcare services and others. So I think the European Union is very uniquely positioned in achieving this kind of leadership. And it's for this reason that the European Commission, together with the member states, puts in place a number of measures to support this kind of developments in AI. Mm-hmm. And it does that through a program which is called the Coordinated Plan in AI, which was actually just been revisited and published together with the regulatory framework that you mentioned earlier in April 2021, and which includes support from the point of view of research. For example, from the point of view of industrial research, there is a new public-private partnership, which is called ADRA, and which looks at AI data and robotics. And it's very important for us to be able to exploit the synergies between these three different areas, because of course artificial intelligence needs data, and it can be often embedded in robots or other machinery. And so the fact that we look at these complementarities and that we bring forward our research in the three areas, and that we are able to integrate these different areas and these different angles is very important for the future developments. But then what the European Union is also doing, always with member states, is to introduce new facilities which are actually bridging the research and innovation stage with our capabilities to bring innovation to the market. And this is going to happen through a new program we have in the European Union called the Digital Europe Program, which will be supporting testing and experimentation facilities in AI, which will target manufacturing, agriculture, smart cities, and healthcare, and which will be very important to facilitate the testing of these technologies. Sometimes the real barrier to be able to achieve the market fast is exactly our capability to test and validate, which can be limited because there are data sets that are missing, or simply because there are no facilities that are very similar to real-world settings and which allow this kind of experimentation. We will also be setting up what we call an AI on-demand platform, meaning a one-stop shop for resources in artificial intelligence that can be used in particular by small, medium enterprises and by public administrations for free, and also with the help of the digital innovation hubs, which are organizations that help SMEs and public administration to digitize. And there will be some hubs that will be particularly devoted to artificial intelligence and interconnected with other facilities such as supercomputers, cybersecurity centers, and so on. So we have a number of important measures also relating to skills, as we, of course, need to develop and retain talent in the European Union, that we do in very strict cooperation with member states. And this constitutes what we call the ecosystem of excellence for AI. But the ecosystem of excellence for AI, and for AI to be used, we also need to have trust. So for the trust, we have also looked at an ecosystem of trust, and in particular through the regulatory framework on AI that you were mentioning earlier. This framework is risk-based, meaning that it is only addressing those artificial intelligence applications that may carry some risks in terms of violation of safety and of fundamental rights. It identifies a very specific list of high-risk use cases, and it proposes to follow and introduces basically a mechanism whereby artificial intelligence applications that are high risk are checked and documented before they're actually placed on the market. So these are rules that apply to a very limited set of applications. As I said, applications that in our opinion may have an important impact on our fundamental rights. and is under discussion at the moment in the Council and in the Parliament. It's a first in the world, and we are very glad to see that through this regulation and international collaboration, we are also succeeding in influencing the thinking in terms of trustworthy artificial intelligence we have been leading in the European Union. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Lucilla, for this broad overview of all the initiatives the European Commission is driving and also to drive trust in Europe. I would like to lead over to Nosha. I mean, you are now working at IKEA and in the responsibility of a global data and AI ethics manager. So probably trust is one of the core topics here you're pushing forward. So I would be, I mean, at the European level, it's on the risk base, but as a high risk use cases that need to indicate trust in all cases. But I think in your case, also the non-high risk cases, you want to ensure that people are having trust. So can you share with us some, I mean, the challenges or maybe also best practice in case you have with us, how you're doing this? What are the strategies you're working on?
Yeah, thank you, Sonia, and thank you. I'm happy to be with my co-panelist here. So with regards to our strategy to deploy and to make happen the trustworthy AI, quite a number of pillars we are working on today. First of them is the data lifecycle accountability and traceability. To make data findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable across business domains. I mean, from our, because today we have several business domains. It's not only home furniture, also. So we are working more widely for life at home purposes. I mean, beyond home furniture. So data lifecycle accountability and traceability is really a key work stream we have inside the Trustworthy AI. Of course, another layer is about robustness, including repeatability, reproducibility, reliability, resilience, and scalability of our digital solutions. We know altogether that reproducibility and repeatability avoid unintended discrimination, right? An algorithm which is not repeatable, neither reproducible, will have a different outcome for a similar context, which is by definition discrimination. So that's why we have early stages there. Before going far to investigate fairness, etc., we need to ensure, foundations from the algorithmic design, development, and deployment perspective first, but also data. And let me continue on our effort now, and then I will provide a comment more generally. I believe also, and that's what we are really developing now, it's awareness campaign, which is a key success factor of all of these efforts, because it's not only effort from digital team, but it is really all co-worker effort to make this movement happen, because data is used by more people than only algorithmic designers and developers. So really to make it operational and happen in real life in our company, we need awareness campaign for all co-workers, co-workers in the store, in front of the customer, etc., etc. So we really focus, and I believe it's really important effort. Otherwise, we can have the best in class in terms of trustworthiness, algorithm and digital solutions, but it will not scale, and most importantly, we need metrics for all these properties. And that's why to me it's very important. But with regards to data, most of the time, what we spent effort on the, in several industrial ecosystem is behavior of algorithm, trustworthiness of algorithm, etc. But we do not, I believe, spend sufficient effort on data accountability, which is a key we have algorithm and data. So that's why we need also measurability with regards to data accountability, which is not, to me, sufficiently, developed and discussed within industrial ecosystem. So this is first.
Thank you, Nora, and thanks a lot for giving this wide overview about all the pillars, what you're addressing. So it seems to be that you're really having a lot of homeworks or activities that you're running and that you need to do. We will talk later also, I think, about the ecosystem and how we can collaborate, because probably it's good to do this together. I would like to go over to Julian. Julia, I mean, you are the very important person to scaling a research innovation ecosystem in France. As director of Grand Défi, I mean, it's amazing the work you have done there. Probably you can share a little bit what you're doing there, how you managed to build strong ecosystem in the area of trustworthy AI, and maybe you can also share with us a little bit about the challenges on the different levels you're addressing, because it seems to be that you're quite advancing a lot. So it would be great if you share with us your insights.
Thank you, Sonia, and thank you for inviting me. I'm really pleased to be here with you today. First of all, I would like to come back to what Lucilla said. I think that industrial applications are really key and are a really huge asset for Europe in terms of AI development. And trustworthy and industrialization are really the two sides of the same coin, because when you look at industrial applications, the scalability is strongly depending on trustworthiness at the end. And we make a study with EY on the trustworthy AI market, and we see that 40 to 60% of the application in 9 industrial markets, such as mobility or Industry 4.0, are required trustworthiness in order to go to the market and to be implemented into a product. And the market figure is roughly 50 billion euro for trustworthy AI worldwide into these 9 sectors. So that's why in France, it was one of the priority of the national strategy in 2018, launched by the French President of the Republic. And we developed what we call a Grand Défi on trustworthy AI for industry. So we have inside this Grand Défi, we have 3 main pillars. One is really dedicated to tools and methodologies. So it means that you will need to have some new tools and some new methodologies in order to implement trustworthiness into AI-based system. The second one is really on conformity assessment, and the third one is on standardization. And what is really, before telling you more about what we do in France, I would like to say that we work with BDVA on a position paper, and we also propose a standardization framework and a technical framework for speeding up industrial AI and trustworthiness. And we see that conformity assessment, standardization, and tools or methodologies are the key issues in order to manage to deploy value into business through AI technologies. In that case, it means that ecosystem is really key. Ecosystem is key because you are needed more and more competencies. You need, of course, competencies on data and AI, but you need also some competencies on safety, on software engineering, etc., etc. So that's why ecosystem is so important in order to tackle this challenge. You need, of course, startup, big company, and academic, because you need to have all these partners into your ecosystem. And it's what we try to do in France with one of the programs I manage, which is Confiance.ai. So we launch a program with a big company, with academic partner, and with also a startup. So we start with 13 partners, but at the end of the year, we will be 40 partners. And we try to develop tools and methodologies in order to propose some solution for, at end, the compliance of your system regarding the future regulation in Europe. Because you will need to have trustworthiness at the data level. Noza already mentioned it, but you will need to implement also new properties into your algorithm, and you will need also to perform new evaluation. So that's why you need to have an end-to-end approach in order to tackle the challenge. What's next, if I can say, we see that trustworthy AI is really key for the future of industry, and that's why we launch a new AI strategies in France, and we will dedicate 80 million euros into trustworthy AI after the investment we already done in 2018. So that's why we consider that it's really one of the priority in regard with the future EU regulation. And we think that we need to develop through a competitive ecosystem in France, but not only with Germany, with counterpart in Europe, in order to tackle this challenge and to have some solution for industrial partner, in order to be sure that at the end there will be compliance to the new regulation. Thanks. Maybe I will give you some more detail after.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thanks a lot for sharing your insights about what you're doing in France and about the way you're thinking about the end-to-end setup of this trustworthy AI technology. And it seems that everybody here in the round thinks that it's very a high priority. I would now hand over to Milan. I mean, Milan, you as head of data analytics and digital twin at Philips, probably you're the person to ask if it's about how to ensure good data quality and how to generate value out of data. What are you seeing as challenges and also like best practices from your background? I mean, you're in healthcare. This is a very, in terms of the upcoming AI regulation, I think this is one of the critical areas. Probably nearly all of your applications you're putting forward will need to comply to the new regulation. So let's share your thoughts on these upcoming topics.
Thank you, Sonia. So it's a great pleasure being with you also in this new edition of European Big Data Value Forum. And indeed, as you said, so I'll share a bit the industrial perspective on the adoption of AI, and obviously we in Philips we are especially focused on that adoption in the healthcare sector and the challenges to actually speed up that adoption in healthcare. Let me start first by just sharing a few opportunities and our view how AI can actually improve healthcare. And then I will move to the challenges that we see to basically, deliver on these opportunities at scale and also with speed. So we believe that AI has a great potential to improve people's lives. And in Philips, we talk about healthcare continuum, so improving, their health, improving their sort of experience through the healthcare continuum, so from diagnosis to treatment to home care. And we see three ways in which AI can improve healthcare. So first of all, AI can augment the expertise of healthcare providers, can support their decision making. So in healthcare is digitizing. There is a lot of data. They do not have time to look at all these data and make a good understanding of it. So helping them by automating insights creations and showing the right data to them, it's really important. Secondly, we see that healthcare is nowadays overstretched. We see that there is not enough staff, increased cost of healthcare, and AI can also address these challenges, can actually help healthcare providers to focus on patient care while taking certain routine jobs and helping actually the management of health crises and pandemics that we are facing now. And then finally, the third point is that AI can help people take better care of their health and well-being by offering personalized and actionable insights to people themselves so that they can maintain healthy habits. Yeah, these are the opportunities that we are all aware of, but then the question is actually how we picture this and show actually this in real examples. And I'll just mention one from Philips, where we developed an early warning score system that basically automatically acquires patient vital signs, so automatically acquires the heart rate, the blood pressure, etc., and then it will calculate warning score whether a patient who is in a general ward in hospital will develop critical situation, and then predict actually this development in an hour or two, so to give enough time to healthcare providers to act on that. And then it is really important to show that in practice in hospitals that these type of systems that are AI enabled, that they basically really address these KPIs that I was talking about. So, for example, this one would decrease mortality rate by 20%, which is patient outcome, improving patient outcome, would decrease with 24% the ICU readmission rate, which is also related to the cost and patient outcome of hospitals, et cetera, et cetera. I think we need to ensure that we also validate those solutions, and then we basically explain better to the sector how much actually that can help them. So maybe going very briefly and talk about the challenges to accelerate this adoption of AI. I think it was already mentioned a couple of times by my colleagues in this panel. So trust is a paramount of promoting wider adoption of AI. It is, about bias, about privacy, about ethical issues. So all this needs to be addressed in order to that we ensure that basically we can accelerate with the adoption of AI. And the companies like also we and Philips, they should put forward actually their basically data principles, AI principles, and ensure also that the customers are basically understanding these principles and have more trust in the solutions. And it is not only about companies; it's really about engaging and empowering citizens, healthcare professionals in healthcare sector, the private sector, and to ensure that we can get to this sustainable and dynamic AI deployments. Secondly, I think it's very important to ensure that the solutions that we are creating, that our colleagues at universities are also thinking of, are integrated into workflows of our customers, so people that are using these solutions, in our case, healthcare providers. And then it's really about empowering people to understand also these solutions, to empowering people that are using these solutions to understand this technology, so that we can actually get it used. Maybe it's also about technology itself. I think it's important that we have enough research on explainability of AI, on this reliability of AI, and ensure that there is enough investment to support that research, so that we in Europe, because we are by tradition having very, very, very good track record in the innovation in AI, that we also empower our colleagues in research and academia to actually with these elements help basically adoption of these solutions. Let me finish briefly by talking about the AI Act. I think it's in April this year, European Commission published the proposal, and I think it's really important to have a robust regulatory framework. That's very crucial. But for the healthcare sector and for the medical devices especially, these devices and the sector have been regulated already for a long time. We have medical device regulation, which is offering detailed and extensive requirements covering various aspects of the technology, actually, as also including actually the AI technology. So we believe it's really important to ensure that regulations in healthcare are sort of built on top of this regulation and ensure that that will also help to support new requirements and address these requirements in for example, medical device regulation, and ensure that we have a proper balance between innovation and regulation in Europe.
Thanks, Milan, for your wide perspective on the one side, on the opportunities, so all the use cases you're bringing forward, but also on the activities that need to be done. And it's quite impressive to see how many people need to be involved. I mean, these are the end customers, the developer at the very beginning, then I mean, all the different areas, the AI people, the data people. So it's a broad range of activities you need to bring together. So thanks a lot for sharing this and also your insight about the AI Act. Let me now move to Asuncion. Basically, what I mean, you're as professor for AI and also like vice rector in the research innovation at UPM in Madrid. I mean, you have been core in the research of AI and contributing to the BDBA strongly. So I would be very interesting to hear from you about the emerging research challenges. I mean, some of them have been already mentioned, but what was your opinion or your perspective on this? I mean, the point is that we want to speed up the adoption of AI. So basically, so how can we make this faster? And to ensure that we have trustworthy AI in the industrial setting. So I'm very curious to hear about your perspective. What are the priorities?
Okay, thank you, Sonia. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for being in this panel. I mean, there are too many challenges that has been already mentioned, but I would like to focus today in my 5 minutes about the importance of having automatic methods for testing compliance with EU principles and also with their regulations. I mean, if we go into the ethics, into the Oxford Dictionary, and we look for the word ethics, it says moral principles that control or influence a person's behavior. And when we are building artificial intelligence solutions, we are building programs that control or could control or influence on personal behavior, and we need to discover if they follow some kind of moral principles. So all of us, we know that there is not a one-size-fits-all ethics. So why? Because we have influence. We are influenced by the education, the religion, the societal principles, the government, the market, etc. So the research questions are: how can we specify the ethics of a particular AI solution? How can we verify ethical approaches in a particular AI solution? How can we ensure that all ethics or several ethics approaches are consistent among them? And how can we ensure that all ethics do not enter into conflict with other ethics or with other principles? And to do it automatically, this is too complicated. So let's move into instead of trying to verify first that the application is ethically compliant, let's see if the AI application is lawful compliant. So right now we have many EU norms and regulations, several at European and national level, and we are applying every day, like it happened with the GDPR. We also have some kind of civil and military regulations, for instance, for aircrafts that are different. We also have sector-specific norms related with health, immigration, energy, transport, and how they are integrated in the critical infrastructure and essential private and public services, especially during these crisis periods, it's really important. So how an AI application that solves these kind of problems, I mean, really follow the new norms that appear. So if we focus on this kind of norms and regulations for high risk AI solutions, could we say that natural language is enough? I don't think so. So should we transform this kind of regulations into machine understandable format to be able to reason with them? I think that this would be the approach in order to speed up the adoption of AI. So the problem is how to specify these AI norms and regulations to be followed later on by AI solutions in a machine understandable way. How can we verify that particular AI solutions are compliant with a given set of norms and regulations? Can we do that with the state of the technology? I think that the technology right now can go into this direction, and we can provide some kind of solutions. Another important question, how can we ensure that in all these set of norms and regulations, how we can guarantee that all of them are consistent among them? And also how we can ensure that our norms and regulations do not enter into conflict. So the problem is complex, but let's say, in my opinion, it is less complex than from the ethical perspective. So in addition to these norms and regulation, and I strongly believe that we need standards. So we are, I mean, you know that I come from semantic technologies, ontology, semantic web, and these kind of things. So we usually think on standard and protocols, syntax and semantics, standards at the syntax and semantic level. But most of the time we forget about the standards, standard methodologies for specifying, developing, and validating AI solutions, a standard for defining requirements of data sets and corpuses to be used in training AI systems, and also standards for ensuring that all norms and regulations are consistent among them, and also that they do not enter into conflict. So, and having a standard is also crucial for moving towards certification. And certification is also another aspect for increasing trust in AI application. So I think that they have already done too many questions, and for the debate and just for food for thought. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot for sharing your insights about, and very interesting to think about the automation of all these underlying processes and how we can move forward in this area. When I'm listening to all the panelists, I mean, one of the what you're sharing is that the situation is quite complex and that a lot of activities needs to be done. And in particular, from what I'm hearing, is that we need to join forces, that we need to cooperate, that we need an ecosystem where the synergies and also the different players that need to be integrated to address. I mean, these like a lot of tasks on different levels that need to be addressed. So I would be very much interested to I mean, the topic is how to join forces, and then who needs to join and for what reason. So basically, what do we need? How do we connect the right stakeholders? But Jill, I would be very interested in, I mean, you mentioned already many of these different initiatives and activities you're pushing forward. I mean, this is all well thought through. You're thinking about people need to be connected, infrastructure that needs to be there. But if I put the questions very simple, who needs to be connected?
Thanks for the question. I think that we need to, there are many developers of artificial intelligence in the European Union that are a little bit difficult to recognize. I'll give you an example. There are some energy companies are very intensive developers, like IKEA, as Noja says, I'm sure it is. And so all the developments that are taking place in all these different sectors need to be reconnected, because at the end of the day, the ways to improve artificial intelligence at the basic level is probably similar for everybody. And so I think what I would like to see, for example, in this public-private partnership on AI, data, and robotics, on the side of AI, I would like to see a lot of companies from all the different sectors of the economy getting together. They don't have to be, AI specialists like your company. Siemens will certainly be in the lead of SAP, I don't know, the software companies in the lead of the European AI. But there are also companies in the different sectors, in the financial sectors. Many banks develop artificial intelligence, for example. All these players should exchange and get together, because they may have very similar challenges to solve and to address.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for very nice point. Milan, if you think about, you have also mentioned so many activities you're planning to put forward, and I think you're not doing it alone. And if you're thinking about joining forces, where are you looking to? So who are your friends you would like to join forces with?
We have a lot of friends, definitely. Yeah. No, thank you. I think it's really important to join forces, and for different challenges there are different needs. And let me just talk about one, which is data access. We all know that data access is very crucial, because we all say, hey, AI is the engine, data is the fuel. So we need to ensure that all these researchers, industry, whoever needs access to data. Healthcare is particularly challenging, obviously, because we are talking about sensitive data. So we need to, have different stakeholders at the table to ensure that we can unlock, for example, the public data, so data from the hospitals. We need to ensure that we also have citizens there at the table, because it might be very helpful if they would donate their data for research purposes. We need all the industry, we need insurance companies, payers. So a lot of stakeholders needs to come together, and it's always depending really on the challenge that we are addressing.
So how many hours a day do you work? So many people to connect. Just kidding. Julia, you presented before, and you're raising the hand. Do you want to comment on this right now?
Yeah. Just I would like to give a comment on the different sector and the interest from different sector in order to work together. Because when we build up the Grand Défi and we build up the program Confiance.ai, we spend 1 year to discuss with many sectors, and at the end we see that the main priorities, the main technological priorities between sectors such as Industry 4.0, mobility, aeronautics, energy and health are quite the same. So 80% of the problem are the same for all the industrial partners. So it means that we can work together, and we need to work together in order to have more use cases, more data, and more people that are bringing in the same environment the competencies that are needed. The other element I would like to underline also, I understand that the comments from Norbert about data and the importance of data, but when you look at the main issues in terms of trustworthy AI, it's not only a question of data, it's a question of algorithm. You need to improve robustness, for example. It's a question of evaluation. It's a question of embedded AI, because if you develop properties on a standalone AI application, and after you want to embed it into a hardware system, and you don't have at the end the same properties, such as robustness or explainability, etc., you will not have trust. So that's why an approach of integration is really key of all the issues, because you need to have all the elements bring together. So data is crucial, but it's not the only issue for trustworthiness, and you have many issues to tackle. And the question of certification is also key, because you see that there is some new approach for certification, such as assurance case, etc., etc. So it's something which is quite new for certain sectors, industrial sectors, and so you need to make research, but also think about industrialization, because at the end you will provide this solution to industrial in order to create value, ethical value, I mean. And the last point that I would like to mention is that conformity assessment is also key, because you have, for example, certain sectors that are really well organized in terms of conformity assessment. If you look at the health sector, or if you look at the aeronautics sectors, there are already ROCAE, EASA, etc., etc. So there is a long history in terms of certification, in terms of conformity assessment, but some of the new high-risk application and sectors are not covering by such organizations. So you will need also to implement some new conformity assessment scheme and a new governances in order to be sure that at the end, the product, the application, or the services is trustable.
Thanks a lot, Julia, for sharing. I mean, what you're highlighting is this industrial engineering approach towards AI development, and ensuring that the different quality areas are there, and in a very systematic manner to ensure that you repeat and reproduce the results in again and again. So it would be very interesting, and we are talking about that we need to work together and collaborate. So I would be interested in looking at Association. You mentioned before that the automation of the research and the testing would be central, and now looking into the industrial AI engineering. So there are similar approaches coming up. How do you, with whom would you need to cooperate to move forward in these directions?
I mean, I think that in addition to the classical suspects, let's say universities, research centers, small, medium enterprises, big enterprises, we need to have the policymakers and the regulators from the very beginning, and also specialists in social science and also in law. This is crucial. And of course, I mean, having the standardization bodies, because this is the only way of speeding up the whole process for the development.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Let's move. I would like to move to another topic. I mean, we talked before about the AI Act, and probably this will have high impact on the way how AI products are developed. The interesting part is, I mean, what do we need to do now? I mean, it will take some years until the regulation is in practice, probably 2024. But still, we need to take action now. And I would be very much interested in what it is, what we need to do now. Nusha, I know that you are also working on transparency aspects. Do you see this also as important way for the AI regulation, or how do you see this?
Yeah, indeed. IKEA Retail, as a value-driven company, we are very much committed to align our technology to our values. And to me, it is very important to team with academia for a new generation of machine learning algorithms, which are value by design, meaning fairness by design, equity by design, transparency by design. And it is, in fact, our efforts and solutions are targeting not only customer, but also co-worker and third-party suppliers. We have a really quite a wide range of third parties And in fact, we are targeting these 3 communities. So our movement today is cross-company, meaning it's not only within digital, it's really cross-company. And we have plenty of use cases, and not only delivery and logistics, but we have human resources, recommendation and search, chatbots, and also financial services, so and energy, which are new investment domain of Inca. So today, to me, to make this regulation, happen, of course, we need interoperable conformity assessment, approaches in a more measurable way. Not only, but in addition, we need to be very careful about something which is crucial for the applicability of this law, which is the AI definition. Because today, today AI definition can change the scope of the applicability of the law. It was defined 3 years ago with scientists from research community and industry community, from academia and industry, with no idea behind about regulation. But today, as we are targeting, regulation of the AI impact on risky application, now, definition of AI is becoming problematic, meaning, we need to reduce the scope of AI to maybe, so that's why it is still some topics that need to be fixed. For the applicability, in an efficient way. So that's why there are really, really plenty of topics. But in fact, in the meantime, we are working on transparency at IKEA Retail. We are working on what we call customer data promise, meaning not only providing context to let the consumer have informed decision making. It is very important, but also making human-centric technology happen in real life, meaning having really feedback from the customer and having him really on the journey of the online, e-commerce that we are developing. And of course, we have been impacted with the lockdown, and our, e-commerce have been really very much deployed and scaled. So that's why today our digital services and the trust that we need really to build in there, not only, trust us, we are trusted brand, but also to build the proof of trust. And that's why we are working a lot today. We have a lot of effort to spend on this, what we call customer data promise, so that we provide a trustworthy context for our consumer, but also for our co-worker and suppliers.
Thanks a lot for sharing, Noza. That's very interesting. That the transparency is like central for the trust, right? For that, I would like to, Milan, you mentioned before that the AI, the upcoming AI Act, and the healthcare sector, you already have the FDA. So basically, how do these two regulations then finally work together? So you already have to do a lot of stuff in order to get your products onto the market, to get the certification. You need to fulfill a lot of things, I assume, and you must be quite expert in this. I was wondering whether the upcoming AI Act, will it change your strategy? Do you see that there are particular actions that need to be done now by you, by the company only, or by the ecosystem in a whole part? So what are your perspective in this context?
Yeah, in healthcare sector, for us and for the other companies, I think patient safety and quality are leading. So, and that will not change. We basically already have products, and everyone has already products that are AI enabled on the market, and we try to ensure that we take proper care in the development of these products. So basically, when you train the models, ensure that you have the right data, that you avoid bias when you deploy the product on the market, that you are doing post-market surveillance, that you are measuring performance, and then and then in some research efforts try to also ensure that your AI methods are maybe explainable. But I think now in the next phase we'll actually also I think European Commission and everyone will start working on the new regulation. I think it's really important to ensure that proper balance, as I said, between innovation and regulation. So to ensure that the smaller companies are able, actually SMEs are able to follow this regulation and not to put too much burden. And as I said, there is already in different sectors already regulation in these sectors, like in healthcare, the medical device regulation, and the FDA, as you said, in US, which will be which already is addressing AI. So we have to ensure that basically this is aligned.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for sharing this. I would also like to ask similar question to Lucilla. I mean, the AI Act will be there in 3 years, 2 years, and I mean a lot of activities have been started. But what do you want the others now to do? I mean, how to ensure now this is a piece of paper. But then standards needs to be developed, conformity assessments needs to be established. So what would be your wish list in terms of things that happen in the next year? What are the actions?
Yes, first of all, we are now starting very seriously the activity in terms of standardization, because the proposed act falls into a category of legislation, of European legislation, to which also the medical device regulation applies to, for example, which is very much based on standardization. And so we are starting the standardization activities with the European standardization bodies to make sure that by the time the regulation enters in force, we have standards available. And this is going to be a very important instrument, in particular for the small, medium enterprises, who will, when undertaking a conformity assessment, simply be able to refer to the existence of a harmonized European standard to be considered compliant with the requirements that have been put in place. I also would like to reassure Milan and others that the AI proposal is constructed very much in complementarity with other regulations, such as the medical device regulation. We will not ask a developer of a medical device to undertake a conformity assessment for the medical device regulation and then go somewhere else for AI. But simply, if AI is a safety component part of that medical device, there will be a stage in the conformity assessment of the medical device conformity assessment, which will look at the artificial intelligence systems on the basis of what is proposed by the AI regulation. This is not foreseen at the moment by the medical device regulation, which looks at software, but does not really look at artificial intelligence. So we are simplifying the mechanism, simply adding a stage in an existing conformity assessment system, and will not be, requiring to go elsewhere and do another assessment or an incompatible assessment. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Lucilla, for sharing these insights. I would like to lead over. We have a nice question from Norbert in the chat. So I would like to address this to everybody. He's asking the question how SMEs can contribute to speed up the adoption of industrial trustworthy AI. So, and follow-up question, what actions would you, in your position, take for boosting their involvement? So basically what we know that for SMEs, they're very important for our industry, but sometimes it's more difficult to integrate them. Who would like to take this question?
I can start. So just maybe give an example what we do in Philips to actually try to onboard SMEs. So as a company very much involved in the healthcare sector, we obviously have platforms and a bigger market share. So what we try to do, actually, we try to in each of these platforms basically create marketplaces where we basically allow SMEs to bring very specific AI algorithms that would address certain particular needs. So if you think about medical image analysis and like, okay, helping a doctor to understand the image, then there will be a lot of algorithms needed to find each of different specific problems that people have, and no one company cannot solve this. So that's why we do a marketplace where we offer a platform for SMEs where they can actually provide on top of our solution the algorithms for particular, for example, applications in healthcare.
Okay, thanks a lot for sharing. Noza, do you have a similar approach, or how is IKEA doing in this area?
Do you hear me? Okay. With regards to SMEs?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have really very nice and wide ecosystem with whom we are working with, and definitely with regards to the Trustworthy AI, framework, we intend to ensure the end-to-end, whatever our interaction. But once we work with an SME and integrate solution of SME or even another third party, in fact, we integrate all the risk and the responsibility chain in our scope. But at the same time, we have also quite interesting effort in terms of investment. We have a division in charge of investment, so we really foster all innovation in this sector, and help a lot, the SME in the context of digital innovation.
Oh, great. Thanks a lot for sharing. Julian, now you're back on stage again. I wanted to know, how are you at Quantifi integrating, involving SMEs? So do you have some best practice you can share? So the question is how to integrate them, involve them to ensure that we speed up.
I think that it's clearly a question of ecosystem, because we have one program, and inside this program we have a specific call for project for SMEs and startups. So it's a way for us to integrate SMEs that are providing some technologies or some use cases, and they can integrate the program and the Grand Défi into this call for project. So for us, it's really important to try to have big company, SMEs, and academic partner, and we do it through a specific call for project for SMEs and startups. It's also a way. The ecosystem is also a way to decrease the investment for the SMEs, because when we look at investments that are required for Trustworthy AI for industry, it's really high. So by putting the SMEs into one ecosystem with some competencies also, it accelerates the diffusion, decrease the risk, and increase the investments that are required by the SMEs in order to access to the technologies. So that's a key element.
Thanks a lot for sharing. I think time is running by, and I wanted to take the opportunity to also have a closing round for each of you. So basically the question is, in a short statement, what we're concerned about, or what we would be interesting to lead, what are the recommendations for the future? So what is central to you we should address for the future? And you might remember, we want to speed up the adoption of AI through the trustworthiness. So what is your recommendation for the future? Lucilla, do you want to go first?
A very difficult question. My recommendation is that with the member states, we are able to put in place these testing experimentation facilities, and generally speaking, we are foreseeing regulatory sandboxes in our regulation, but that there is the possibility of carrying out regulatory sandboxes and testing and experimentations for artificial intelligence. I really think this is extremely important also to attract SMEs and startups and bring innovation to the European market.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Noja, what are your key recommendations for the future? You need to unmute, yeah?
Yes. Definitely, we need to keep sense and consistency of all what we are developing, in fact. And, and keep in mind the impact that we can have with our AI-powered services on people on the planet. To me, it is really very important to consider people and the planet, because today we are not sufficiently, oriented digital service sustainability. I'm not talking about IKEA, but I'm talking really from the digital industry more generally. We need to work all together to make AI more sustainable, AI for green and green AI. To me, it is really very important direction, which is still in the scope of ethical AI and responsible AI, because we have, responsibility toward people and the planet, because also planet have impact, on the people lives. So that's to me really, we need to keep that in mind, because it have a lot of impact on people's lives and of course on the planet.
Thanks a lot for putting it into the larger context and importance of the topic that we need to move forward. Julia, what are your recommendations for the future?
I totally agree with the recommendation of Noza on climate change, etc., because we see that there is a huge challenge also on AI, especially dedicated to green aspect relatively to artificial intelligence. How you can have an approach which is frugal in terms of consumption, energy consumption, and in terms of data also. And regarding the question of trustworthiness, I guess that key will be the implementation at the end. So that's why, and the way we manage to have something which is actionable for industrial partners. And for industry in Europe, because if not, we will not creating value. So one of the key elements, we propose a roadmap, especially with BDVA on the standardization and technical aspects. And I think that we need to have some key cooperation between standardization, testing, and use cases coming from industry and tools and methodologies. So these aspects are really key, and for me, we need to work together to tackle all these points.
Thanks a lot, Julia, for sharing this. Milan, what is your perspective on the recommendations for the future?
Sure, I agree with what was said. So next to that, I just would like to emphasize once more the data access, interoperability, like Julian mentioned, standardization, very, very important. And I think initiatives like GaiaX could be very instrumental in this process. Investment in research, as well investment in trials, ensuring that in Europe we can go ahead and lead in actually closing the loop and having performance measurement of our AI systems, and by that ensuring that they are really trustworthy in use. I think it's also very, very important.
Okay, thanks, Milan. Last but not least, Asuncion, what are your recommendations for the future? You need to unmute.
Okay, sorry.
Now it's working.
Okay, so I think that we should go into two approaches. First one is to transform specific norms and regulations that are in different natural languages into some kind of machine understandable specification in order to be processed by machines and to make reason with this legislation, to do some kind of reasoning with this legislation. And second, we need some kind of automatic methods and benchmarks to verify that a particular AI solution built with standard technologies and methodologies satisfies the norms and the regulations.
Okay, thank you. So I want to thank you, all the speakers. So my main learning of the session, or it's more or less like reinforcing what we already had in discussions before. I think that the trustworthiness of AI for industrial settings is very, very central for Europe. I mean, it's a way forward. We can strengthen the ecosystem. Also seen in the larger picture. So we had one or the other moments where we had, it's a huge topic we need to address. On the other side, we learned that there's a lot of complexity around. We need to bring together all these different players. I think they have been mentioned very nicely. And now we need to work on this. So the areas which have been mentioned, I also get the feeling that we are converging in what needs to be done. And I'm looking forward to probably we will all work in one or the other setups and join forces. So I want to thank you all for this very inspiring discussion and all your insights from these different perspectives. And if I'm right, then I'm leading back to Ljubljana. So where's Ljubljana?
Ljubljana is calling. Thank you so much, Sonia. Dankeschön. Das war wirklich ganz toll. Thank you for being with us. I'm not alone here on stage. I'm joined by our forces who were really supporting this event through this day. So Anna is with me, Laure, and Thomas at the very end. Thomas, everybody looks very happy and satisfied. Happy with this second day, Thomas. It was actually, we did it well. We did quite well, right?
Yes, we are prepared for the song contest. Come back.
There go to us. Yes.
No, we had an intensive discussion today. I think very good input. I think what is, let's say, like a red line, collaboration with impact. Let's phrase it in this way. We see this in the last panel. We have seen this. We have seen this by the database business lines. Also in the morning with a high-level panel, where the need. Come on, we have some kind of nuggets around how we bring this closer together to great impact.
So Sonia was actually talking about the future at the end with her panelists. What would be the main topic for BDVA in the future?
You know, BDVA is, and now make it again explicit, big data value association, also data value, to achieve data value in the area of industrial AI, with the data spaces, with the cooperation in data spaces, and with a trusted and secure or safe, or however you name this, infrastructures. That's exactly what is, let's say, for me, the topic.
Anna has been working very hard today, not only introducing panels, but as well presenting them. But Anna, how can people get engaged? How can they engage with the BDVA?
So thank you, Moitza. So clearly, you know, with events like this one, so we still have 3 days ahead. Full of interesting sessions. I mean, today, Monday, we had a lot of good stuff. And after today, we have still 3 days to go. So, of course, we organize these events, this type of events, different formats, etc., quite often. But also, I mean, for those organizations that are still not a member of the association, we are quite an open association. Anyone can apply, of course, anyone working in the domain of data and industrial AI, and in particular interested in industry-driven research and innovation. So we are very much open. If what you saw today, you saw yesterday, what you see the rest of the week resonates, you want to get engaged in ongoing basics, I mean, we are open to to welcome you in the association. We have very active working groups, Moitza, very good task forces, and people really dedicating extra time because they have their jobs, but dedicating time to build something together with others, and that's very impressive to see. And we have working groups, task forces in many, in most of the topics that we have been discussing today, in many verticals, and it's actually our members, they are the ones that make the difference, and together they're really building a future for this topic. So we are very proud of them, and again, we welcome anyone interested in joining forces to us to come to the association.
And you really had guests and speakers from so many different fields, right?
Indeed.
From politicians to the industry to research. And Laure, you've been involved with the forum for all the 5 years, right? From Versailles, Vienna, Helsinki, Berlin. And you can really tell and tell us a little bit more how this event has been evolving.
Yeah, definitely. 2017 was the first time we did this EBDVF, and that was called, and this type of format. We actually had some events before, when we started. But I think, in terms of size, in terms of variety, as Anna mentioned, different members, diversities of countries as well, and different technologies, different domains. That's also an evolution that we see. More and more domains and more people in each domains. So that's an interesting part. And I think, you mentioned Versailles in 2017. So this was the first time we did this format with NOSA, by the way. 2018 in Vienna, 2019 in Helsinki, last year the Berlin online whatsoever we call it. So I hope Ljubljana this year. I hope next year we won't have any more plexiglass wall. But that's I think it's interesting. In terms of topic, the evolution is small. It's difficult to see, but of course, when we look backwards, yes, there is an evolution. But we already had the same topics, more or less. AI was already a topic for quite a long time, and still will be. So I hope we will see this progress again and again.
But Thomas, there are challenges for the future for this forum as well.
For sure. We have, in the first half of the year, we have typically our data weeks. And next year it will be in France for the presidency. So you have seen Julien here on before. We are just speaking about this, and you can imagine that this trusted AI aspect would be one of the main topics which we are addressing together. And you can book your calendar. Don't ask me when it is precisely. Not in January, maybe in April, May. We will have the event in France, and for sure the European Big Data Value Forum. And you're absolutely right. Don't ask me how many speakers of how many regions we have from different stakeholder groups will be in the Czech Republic, I hope. Without walls, let's phrase it this way. Without the plexi topics between us. I have to be careful. And I'm very sure that we will have, again, 2 fantastic events next year. Besides the activity group meetings, like Anna said, where we're setting up also regarding data spaces, industrial AI, additional topics where we can satisfy the needs, what is to be clarified from the community, from all of us.
Yeah, we're all looking forward to better times, easier times for organizing events like that, without walls, like you mentioned. But we did it so far. This was the second day. Everybody really happy. And it was it Thomas Edison had this beautiful thought. He said that success is 10% inspiration and 90% perspiration, Anna, and it does apply to the EBDVF as well.
So that's a good reflection, Moitza. I agree. And I think we can really use this nice quote to also think about, we are here on the stage. We had today fantastic speakers. We have many people who are organizing sessions. But this is probably the 10%. And the 90% is the people who are more invisible to those of you that are out there, and are the people really doing the work. And really, it's difficult to mention them all, but first I would like to thank some people present here in Ljubljana. So you can see probably the team. So you are seeing us, we are seeing what you are seeing now. So the whole team doing the production is quite amazing. Also, we have colleagues here in Ljubljana. We have our communications manager. So it's Jaco. So working very, very hard. And besides Jaco, you can see Flavio from the ICT Association. So we've been organizing this together. And now online, you can see also my colleague Mattia, operations manager, and my great colleague Sina, international officer in the secretariat. And I mean, they have been really working extra hard. You cannot imagine. And it's thanks to these people and many other people that what we are doing today is possible. So I mean, it's difficult now to ask for a big applause and all.
Yes, we have a big team over here. Let's.
This is the kind of things that are still online. We haven't found a way to celebrate as we should, but at least from my heart, thank you to all of you who are working so hard to make this happen, and don't have the opportunity to be here in front of everyone.
That was so nice, Anna. Really, thank you for thinking about everything and everybody, and we still have enough people, for a big round of applause, as you could hear. So really, thank you. This completes our second day. Thomas, you wanted to add something? I mean, you're in charge after all, you can.
We should not forget Anna. She is a master who are orchestrating everything.
Yeah, and also from my side, I want to give a special thanks to our sponsors. So that's the other, we have like 50% the team and 50% is all those organizations that also make this event happen. And all the companies, the research institutes, all the projects that contribute with so much content and really make this event happen. So also from my side, a big thank to you all, and we hope that we hope continuing together working with you. Thank you very much.
So this is the happy end of day number 2. 3 more to go. So do have some rest or some nice company, and we will see you tomorrow. Thank you. Bye from Ljubljana.
Thanks. Bye-bye.